I want you guys to answer this question in the comments for me. Is camping a viable strategy in Call of Duty? Camping has been a hot topic ever since Call of Duty first got popular. Tons of people arguing it's a perfectly respectable way to play, while others argue the side that it destroys the integrity of the game. But regardless of how you personally feel about camping, I think we can all agree that certain maps in the game, well, they really catered to camping. And that's what we are going to focus on today. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos, and today we're going to take a little journey through COD history. We're going to check out what I think are the 10 campiest maps ever put in Call of Duty multiplayer. So you let me know if you've ever camped on any of these maps. Circle of Trust, of course. Drop a like. Make sure you guys are subscribed. This is not an easy list to put together. Keep the comments civil. And at number 10, Stonehaven and Ghosts. Now, this map is infamous for its ridiculous size and the simple fact that it was definitely not designed for 6v6, but it was in the 6v6 playlist anyways. Anybody and everybody who played Stonehaven knows the feeling of running around the map, not finding anybody, and then getting killed by somebody sitting in a corner waiting for people to filter into their line of sight because, frankly, that was the only way for you to play consistently or do well on this map. Running around Stonehaven was completely unviable because there was just way too many places for you to get shot from. So if you wanted to do well consistently, you had to lock down a certain area, and then just shoot anybody who comes into that area. If you loaded into this map, you were either running around for 10 minutes and barely seeing anybody, or you were sitting in one spot and killing people as they walk by. So to me, it's deserving of a spot on today's list. At number 9, Winter Carentan in COD World War II. Now, Carentan is a classic Call of Duty map that first appeared all the way back in the original game, COD 1. Then it was brought back as a free DLC map in COD World War II with a snow overlay. People, well, initially they were excited. It was quickly discovered, though, this map was not intended for modern COD players. Carentan played great back in the day when nobody had sprint and basically everyone was using slow-firing weapons. But in COD World War II, where the movement was faster and you had custom classes and kill streaks, it was a camper's paradise. Absolutely nobody moved on the map. Nobody. You just found a window or a hallway to make your own, and you sat there for as long as you could. Some people would get ballsy here and try to run around the alleyways and flank the campers, but the vast majority of players on Winter Carentan were not interested in taking risks or going outside in the cold weather. It turned a classic map and a piece of COD history into one of the most hated maps in the game, which to me is kind of a shame. But I guess that's what happens when you try to play on an old school COD map with modern mechanics. And that's what we call foreshadowing. At number 8, Wasteland in Modern Warfare 2 2009. Wasteland is another example of a map that was a remake of one of the original Call of Duty maps, but it was completely broken by the new mechanics. Wasteland is a remake of the map Breakhort. Yeah, that's right, which appeared in Call of Duty 1 and 2, but with the addition of things like sprinting, kill streaks, perks, and the fancy gun attachments in Modern Warfare 2, the balance of the map went out the window. It was completely broken. It turned it into one of the campiest maps ever seen in a first-person shooter game, not just Call of Duty. And that was because of the lack of cover. You had wide open sightlines. The only viable play style on Wasteland was finding one of the few buildings, locking it down, waiting for people to walk into your line of sight. And if you managed to get a Harrier, it was basically game over because there was no aerial cover on the map. So the Harrier could easily get you a chopper gunner or AC-130, which would easily get you to your nuke, which would just end the game, which is probably a good thing. I have a lot of nostalgia for Wasteland, but I can admit it was not a well-balanced map. It was probably the easiest nuke map in COD history, and that was all thanks to the sheer power of the camping playstyle at hand. If you locked down the center bunker before anyone else, you basically won the match. At number 7, Tarik in Modern Warfare 2 2022. Now, this game was not exactly the best game for traditional COD players. In fact, many COD players have called this game the single worst COD multiplayer in the franchise because of how slow and campy it was. Infinity Ward was completely open about the fact they wanted this game to be as easy on the noobs as possible, which is what gave birth to the whole Sentinel playstyle meme. So I'm not going to dwell on this game's map too much, but I did want to mention this one because this map was a total nightmare for anyone who liked to play COD or like the old school games. 2 versions of the map, one for 6v6, one for Ground War, but the 6v6 version was the main reason it's on the list today because that version was some of the slowest and campiest Call of Duty ever released, and guess what? It was a remake again of a classic COD map. It was a modern remake of Newville from Call of Duty 1. But just like all the other remakes we talked about, that balance was completely destroyed by the modern COD mechanics, and it didn't help that the gameplay of Modern Warfare 2 is entirely based around camping on top of all that. Look, the map sucked. At number 6, El Cilio? El Asilo? I don't even know how to say this map, to be honest with you. El Asilo in Modern Warfare 2 2022. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on the game, but let's be real. Concept for this map was actually interesting. Featured a lot of open environment, big building in the center. That was where most of the action took place. But since this was Modern Warfare 2 2022, the action mainly consisted of people sitting in the corners watching the doorways instead of actually fighting or trying to be creative with their strategies. But what if you didn't manage to lock down that center building? What could you do then? Well, you could just find one of the smaller buildings on the outskirts and camp that one. What if you wanted to run around and play aggressively? Well, guess what? That's too bad, because you literally couldn't. With how loud the footsteps were in the game, it was basically impossible to flank people, meaning when the match started, it was just a mad dash to lock down one of the buildings, and then you would just sit there for as long as humanly possible. No strategy, no dignity, no fun. Now we arrive at the top 5. Estate in Modern Warfare 2 2009. Now, I will be the first to say, this was a fun map, as long as you could take control of the center building before anybody else. I've seen people argue that it's actually a bad map because of how powerful that center area is, and to some extent, I agree with that. It was a bit of a balancing oversight, but I might just be blindsided by or blinded by nostalgia. Estate, mid-sized map, set on the side of a mountain, all paths lead to the big building in the middle that was total dominance over the rest of the map. Of course, looking down the center building by yourself, you could if you had 1 or 2 teammates even with you, could dominate the lobby. You could cover the entrances, shoot down anyone who's trying to challenge you, and even if you didn't have teammates, the upstairs area of the building is pretty manageable by yourself, especially if you have claymores or a tactical insertion and one-man army. Estate's a pretty divisive map because of how powerful camping it was. I mean, I will give Infinity Ward credit, though. It was a lot more fun than the other maps we've talked about. I would argue Estate is the most fun map on this entire list, but we still have 4 maps to go, and they're pretty brutal, so strap in. At number 4, Euphrates Bridge in Modern Warfare 2019. Not only was camping way too powerful on this map, but the spawns seemed to be straight up broken. Euphrates Bridge is a huge map that in the 6v6 playlist, for some reason, it had the dead center of the map, and there was a big bridge that gave you visibility over the entire thing. It allowed you to sit up where the sniper was and spawn trap the enemy team single-handedly. And since there's only 2 ways to the top of the bridge, it was really easy to lock the area down by yourself. And despite the map being absolutely massive, it seemed like there was only a handful of spawn points that would constantly get locked in place, which resulted in big chunks of the map just completely being unused and making the center bridge even more powerful of a camping spot because it just made the spawns even easier to predict and harass with a sniper rifle. Euphrates Bridge could be fun if you were the one up at the top doing the sniping, but if you were literally anywhere else on the map, it was unbearable. Camping the center bridge was the only viable strategy on the map. That's a pretty massive reason as to why nobody liked it. I don't know about you guys, but if I got Euphrates Bridge as a lobby, I just backed out. At number 3, Grozny Raid in Modern Warfare 2019. Speaking of maps I would back out of, Grozny has to be one of the most hated maps in COD history, and I agree with it. Certainly didn't have a good first impression of Modern Warfare 2 as a whole. This was one of the beta maps. Immediately became a meme due to how much camping took place. The map took place in the middle of a bombed out city square, meaning you're supposed to run from building to building, flank enemies, but in reality, people just sat in one of the buildings and blasted anybody who tried to cross the street or play aggressively. I'm sure all of you have seen that meme of the player checking his surroundings 4 to 5 times before trying to cross the road on Grozny Raid, only to get immediately shredded once he stepped a foot into the street. And that summed up the map. And did I mention it was 6v6? It was in the 6v6 rotation. Why? Why Infinity Ward? I don't know. At number 2, Gustav Cannon in COD World War II. Now, it was basically the prototype for Euphrates Bridge, but when you think about it, maybe a little worse. Huge map, giant piece of high ground in the middle. You could lock yourself down by yourself if you wanted to. Only 2 ways to get up, 2 ways to get out. And then once you were up there, you could easily spawn trap the entire enemy team by yourself because the spawn points were predictable. And there were entire chunks of the map that you would never spawn in. And did I mention there was also hardly any overhead cover on the map? Meaning, if you could get any type of aerial kill streak, you were basically guaranteed 3 to 5 kills, which would just send a bunch of enemy players back to the spawn point, which you could just then shoot from your high ground spot and do it all over again. Gustav Cannon was the biggest meme in COD World War II, and got to the point that even Sledgehammer was throwing shade at their own map on Twitter. When the developers are contributing to the memes about their own map, I think it's safe to say nobody liked it. Much like Euphrates, I will admit, could be fun if you were the one on the high ground. And at number 1, the best camping map in COD history, hands down, unanimous, has to be Piccadilly in Modern Warfare 2019. I mean, when not even the developers want to play the map, there's a problem. I'll give IW credit for creating an absolutely gorgeous map that perfectly captured the real-world location, but after about 60 seconds of sightseeing and playing on Piccadilly, you'll be able to see why everybody hated it. Maybe a realistic map, but it's terrible for traditional Call of Duty gameplay. There's so many alleyways, windows, corners, dark spots. Takes place at night. Makes it even harder to see the campers when they're peeking their heads out to pop you in the chest with a sniper and an M4 and send you back to the spawn. If you weren't camping the second story window, what were you doing? Well, you were probably camping the scaffolding. If you weren't camping the scaffolding, you were probably camping the subway stairs. And if you weren't camping the subway stairs, you were camping the shop entrance. And I could go on and on. Moving around Piccadilly at all was an unviable strategy because the sheer number of camping spots and lack of covered flanking routes made it quickly become one of those hated maps in Modern Warfare 2019. If you ask me, this is the campiest map in COD history. I know there's a lot of them. I truly hope the COD developers learn their lesson with this one. We don't need another map like this. It may have been realistic, it may have been pretty, but it was not good for Call of Duty. Now let me know one map that's really campy that we forgot to put on the list today. I'll see you guys soon.